Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see you. Thanks for everybody for being here. We're just going to go right to questions, if that's okay. And I'm sure you have a lot, so give you more time to answer questions. Me more time, I should say.
Kirk Schrock talked about how maybe the quarterbacks last year weren't read option. It looked like Tanner maybe was a little bit more and had some success with it. How would you kind of describe the running game from the quarterbacks and where you want to see it?
From the quarterback perspective, you don't look at Tanner Morgan and think he's a running quarterback. He's a quarterback that can run, which I think there's a big difference. I think when he runs, it's an effective run. I don't think you're going to see a lot of big designed runs, quarterback power, quarterback counter, those types of things for him. But he's effective enough and he's smart enough to be able to understand his reads and when he should pull it and when he should give it. But I thought the one he pulled was perfect. He might only pull one or two a game at times, but he does it very effectively. And I thought he played a really good game. He's got to get better in a lot of areas. It's like a catcher calling a baseball game. There's some pitches you want back and some calls maybe you want back. But other than that, I thought he handled himself in a very poised way for the entire game.
PJ, you want to be a physical running team, kind of methodical, control the clock, but in your mind, or have you told Kirk, when you have a Bateman and a Ty Johnson, X number of shots you want to take down the field in a given game? Or is that
good question, Chip? No, we only had 56 plays, right, total, which wasn't a lot for us. That's below our average of plays. But when you look at it, they did a really good job, right, of giving us looks that we hadn't seen before, which you give them credit. I mean, they came in here. This was their huge game that they've been waiting 4 years now to play another Power 5 team. They came in here ready to go in terms of game plan wise, putting us in positions that maybe we hadn't seen, and they took double cover Ty Johnson, right? So then it's 13 had a heck of a game and a big game. Run game, we got to be more consistent. We got to continue to be more physical. I think too many guys were trying to do too much instead of just their job on both sides of the ball. But you got to give them a lot of credit for having the right game plan and the type of game plan they had, that every time we'd adjust to one thing, there'd be another thing that was thrown that was maybe a little bit different. That's why I meant, I think Andy asked me that question before preparing for Ghosts. That's what that means, is when you don't know what you're really going to get. And then when you get it, you got to adjust to it. And then there's something else you don't know what you're going to get. Then you got to adjust to that as you keep going through the game. And it takes you a while to get caught up with that. But yes, I think last year, to answer your question, Chip, last year we had Tyler Johnson. We didn't know about Rashad. We knew about Rashad, but nobody really knew about Rashad. And he was making plays that maybe surprised people. Well, I don't think he's doing things that surprises anybody anymore. So now you have two weapons, right? Plus you have Seth. Plus you have your backs, the offensive line, which has to continue to get better. So we have a lot more options, which I think it's going to, as we keep going through, we kept it very basic and very simple in game one. But as we continue to go, I think you're going to be able to see us use everybody and use them in very creative ways.
When you watch back the tape, what can you evaluate from the offensive line, and how do guys like Daniel and Curtis have to get better before Fresno?
Yeah, the way Daniel and Curtis get better is they got to play more. Curtis is redshirt freshman. Daniel's on his third year playing football. They've got to be able to play more and just continue. They're going to get better every single week, and I think that's where we have to be. Nobody's going to be as patient as I would want that to be able to look at, but that's the best 5 and 6 that we have. If you throw John Michael Schmitz in there, that's the best 6 we have. How we're able to rotate that, move that as their performance goes is based on them, but they've got to get better. And there's some simple things we missed that we shouldn't miss. There's some complex things they missed, and there's some complex things they did really, really well. But we've got to play cohesively better as a unit, way more physical. And time with those guys is the number one thing for them, which we don't have when they're really young, right? So you've got to do everything you can, more film study, and give them more looks, and just continue to get them that much better every single day. You're not going to be able to jump to their senior year right now. They have to get this much better every single day, and that's what we're going to keep focusing on.
When you talk about players doing too much or being a little overhyped, how do you go about dialing that back without overcorrecting?
Yeah, I think you just show them, right? You show them exactly what you're talking about. It's one thing to tell a player something and to teach them on something. It's another thing to show them exactly what you're talking about, right? And you've got to match those. You want your message to be able to match the video and match the performance, right? No matter what that is. Whether you're correcting or whether you're praising the model, it's got to match or you lose credibility, right? And so I think what we need to be able to do is just to make sure that our guys understand that we have 11 guys on the field, especially on defense. They can all make plays. You don't have to make somebody else's play. But I like that. I like them being a little bit hungrier, trying to do too much than have it the opposite way. But that's what they were doing, in my opinion, watching the film, trying to do too much, trying to do somebody else's job. And not because they didn't know their job, didn't trust somebody else. It's just they were a little overzealous. And I want to keep that edge, and it's just showing them exactly what we're talking about. And I thought our players did a really good job in film study. They were very honest with themselves. And that's the key. I can sit there and say it till my face is blue. When they see it, they got to be honest with themselves.
Did you do anything to adjust for the late kickoff, or is that not a big factor?
The kickoff return?
No, kickoff time. For this
Oh, the kickoff time. I'm sorry. I thought we were still talking about this one. Oh, yeah. No, we're staying on Central Time. Okay, so we won't adjust our clocks at all. We're heading out west. We have a lot of experience, numerous where I was at before. Heading out west, whether it's coaches from the past in terms of on our staff, going through it, talking about it, having different schedules. We've done this before. We did it at Oregon State. We've done this numerous times. So I think it's best keeping them Central Time. We'll fly out in the early afternoon, very early afternoon, and spend as least amount of time as we possibly can. But again, when you look at it, the way I break it down to our players is, well, listen, you just went through training camp and now it's hot. And then 2, all you're doing is flying in an airplane for 4 more hours. Other than that, you're going to play football, right? I mean, half of you just moved into a new dorm anyway. So you're going to sleep in a different place. Well, you just slept in a different place yesterday since you moved in. You're doing everything you can to make it as familiar as possible, to make it not seem as big as other people make it seem, because we're doing everything we could put in their heads, what we want them to be able to listen to and to be able to see, and you see it our way. But that's how we'll prepare for the trip. Hydration is absolutely critical, and we've already started that whole process with our nutritionists and things like that.
How would you evaluate your linebacker play on Thursday night?
Average. I think it was average. And I've got to be better. I got to be a better football coach, and we've got to be able to play better. It's very simple. Again, going back to people trying to do too much. There's a lot of guys who got their shot to play the position that haven't played it yet, right? And with Kamal being out. And it's a little different than when you're practicing than when you're actually playing it, and playing it with, live bullets and not having a lead, of 30 points or something like that. There's a big difference. But I thought they played hard, just didn't play the system correctly at times, which hurt us.
Was there also an issue getting lined up? It seemed like maybe on the goal line and
on the goal line when they hurried up, which we've covered. I could have burned a timeout here and there, but that goes back. That's on me if they didn't get lined up quick enough. But we worked on that this past week. We've worked on all of that, and again, did some things they haven't shown, which we got to be ready to go. So, and again, we weren't.
Did Rodney look like the old Rodney to you?
I think he looked closer to the old Rodney as possible. Yes. We had a scrimmage kind of halfway through training camp. And I remember watching that and Rodney being very honest with himself that didn't look like Rodney. It was his first time really taking live bullets in terms of going through and getting tackled and having those live reps. But when you look at where he was in the scrimmage to where he is now, I think it's night and day. The scrimmage, you can tell he's very hesitant, didn't really want to make those cuts, didn't make them as hard as he usually does, and he's really bought into that and bought into his body in terms of trusting it a lot more, and he looked like it. He had his burst back, and that's the biggest thing, and especially the way he accelerates on contact, and I thought he had that back. But again, they always say it still takes a full year for everything to feel the same way, and we're right about that time for him. But I thought he played well. Did he play as good as he can play? Probably not. Like all of us, I just think that with game one, I didn't think we played as well as we could. So just too inconsistent in every position. But he looked like he was getting back to him.
BJ, Tyler Johnson's obviously going to be a focus of opposing teams.
Right.
Is there a next step for him to kind of fight through those double teams, or can you win with him getting 3-4 catches a game?
Well, we have to be able to, again, when you're going to your game plan, you don't know how anybody's going to play either, right? And especially when you don't have any type of film and any type of, when you're sitting there saying, okay, what are they actually going to give us against us and how are they going to be able to do that? Usually once you get during the season, you can start to see how people play, and but they mixed it up a ton. But the biggest thing they were going to do, they were going to take Tyler Johnson out of the game, and you got to give them a lot of credit because they did the best they could. Now we had 2 drops, right, which are going to extend drives. We get us more plays for opportunities to get him the ball. He's just going to have to be able to understand that us, game plan-wise, we're going to have to put him in a position where you can't do that, or it's going to hurt you in the run game, right? but he's going to be able to have to make some plays in a lot of his spatial awareness is going to have to be better. He's going to have to be able to make plays in chaotic situations and have people around him a lot more than maybe he did even last year. But that's going to help Rashad. That's going to help the run game. That's going to help everybody else. And I think we're going to see how that unfolds as we keep going forward of how people continue to defend us.
When Blaze was called for the blindside hit, it was at a critical time. You know, it would have been 4th and 4. You're trailing by 1, but you were pretty composed after that call. Why was that something that you were taking in stride, it looked like?
Well, I work on myself every day. Just like players are always evolving, coaches are always evolving, right? You know, I can't say I'm getting older, but I am. You're getting wiser, and you know how to be able to, what your team needs on the sideline at different times. But that call, there's nothing you can do about that point. And whether I agreed or disagreed with it, that's irrelevant. I think the blindside block is in play for all the right reasons. It's just got to be. I think when we're calling it, it's made for those big hits that people see. Maybe not when two people are running towards each other. I mean, that's hard. That's a harder one to call, I think. But there's reason why it's in, reason why the official saw it, and reason why the official threw it. We use it as a learning experience, and then be able to move on. You know, this team learns really well. You know, we didn't have many penalties, but we had penalties that were really costly. You know, that was one of them. And then we had a holding call on Sam Renner, which it's 20-7 at that point. We get a holding call on the defensive hold, but they also have a holding call. Now all of a sudden it's 2nd and 12 for them, and we get the ball back at midfield and maybe go down and make it 27-7, and now it's a different ball game. So it came at really critical times, but we weren't penalized a lot, which I'm proud of our team for the discipline they showed, and they should be proud of that. But there's also some things we got to continue to work on. You know, we won the turnover margin, which we needed to do, but that we've got to expand that as we keep going.
On the one turnover, did Tanner just stare that guy down? Or did the safety kind of do something?
You know, it's interesting when a guy throws an interception, because the first question we always ask is, what'd you see? You know, the last thing you want to do is start, you know, telling him what he should have saw, because you're not on the field. Or I think Mike Leach said it last week or 2 weeks ago. He said, all I do is give suggestions. The plays are suggestions to the quarterback. I thought it was awesome. I mean, it's almost genius the way you say that. I give the suggestion, and you're the one on the field. You get the pick. But with Tanner, it was very similar. He thought he could fit it in there, because I thought he didn't see the guy. He goes, no, I thought he could fit it in there. So he obviously saw him and just thought he could fit in there. Well, now he knows you can't touch the stove, right? And if he just waited just a split second to let him pass, he wouldn't be able to hit him for a big play. But again, those are the things that you go back on film and you watch and you can correct, you know. But I appreciate his aggressiveness, you know. But I didn't know what he was going to say, and he said, you know, I thought I could fit it in there. Okay, well, now you know. But the one thing about him is he responds really well. Tanner's really good at letting the play go, no matter what it was, good or bad. He's got those intangibles that's what make him very unique and make him different. And that's what makes him, you know, a 6-foot quarterback playing in the Big Ten, because he's just got this incredible intangible level of being able to respond to certain things that happen, that he just moves on. And that's what you want out of your quarterback.
What did you take away from Fresno's game against USC is you'll be facing another new quarterback and another OC?
They're really good. That's what I took away. They're really good. And we knew that last year. You know, I think they finished 18th in the country, 12-2. I think when people look back to the win we had here, they're like, "Oh yeah, you beat Fresno State and their Group of 5 team." That's uneducated, right? When people say things like that, because that was a big time top 25 team. They were that close from representing the Group of 5. You know, so they've got a really good quarterback. He can run, he can throw, he likes to be on the move. They've got some guys with speed on the outside that can really run. Their tight end's a big part of what they do, very similar to last year. They might have lost their coordinator to Indiana, but I mean, you look at what Tedford's been able to do offensively, that doesn't matter. They haven't missed a beat. I mean, they have the ball with under 2 minutes to go, right around 2 minutes to beat USC. And that's impressive, right? So they're a tough group of guys. You know, their defense is very similar to last year, very aggressive, great tacklers, all play really well within the system, especially up front with their inside guys, very powerful, very explosive. They create a lot of havoc inside. And they force you to beat them. USC had to go beat them. And they came down to the last play. They're a very talented football team. And they got great special teams work and players, well coached. It's a very good football team.
What did you think of the kicking game, and are you going to stick with Lance?
Yeah, it was inconsistent. You know, there's a lot of freshman kickers all over the country. I look at perspective all the time. You know, I mean, I give our players perspective the best I possibly can in terms of everything, right? So there, in the last 12 years, there were 99 FCS teams that beat FBS teams, and I gave our players that stat, so they don't know that it's just for last week is South Dakota State coming in here. I mean, that was their a huge game for them, one of the biggest games they've played in, right? And we were going to get everything they got. And then if you look at within 7 points or a win or a loss, but the game ended within 7 points, it's 210 games over the last 12 years with FCS and FBS. When you look at that, right, that's crazy statistics. When our kickers didn't do, or Michael Lance misses the extra point, which is huge, right? And maybe we didn't perform the best we possibly can in our specialists. You go back to, hey, listen, there's a lot of people who didn't perform very well. We just need you to perform better, right? You're not the only one that did this, okay? A lot of freshmen that come in. We don't have Emmett Carpenter anymore, all right? There's a new era. We're going to have to develop into our kickers. We're going to have to develop with them, help them grow, teach them, get them to be able to be really confident on the field. And again, the same way, just like the offensive line, they need experience. They need to get out there and play. They need to get out there and kick, right? They need to miss some, make some, and that's the only way you grow experience. And when somebody becomes a junior and a senior, or you look at like the Patriots, and the reason why they always go back to the Super Bowl, they're very experienced. Experience matters. But I am very, very proud of how they all responded in practice the last 2 days. Very proud of how they've done that. But we just got to be more consistent. And then we got to be more consistent in the coverage teams. So, and they know that. The one thing I like about this team is you can tell them the facts and you can tell them the reality. And they don't take it personal. They know it, they see it, and then they want to fix it, which has been fun. That's why I say it's a fun group to coach, because they're not resisting the growth.
I heard on the radio you said Carter was limited in practice. Is he dealing with the same thing that he was early in camp?
Similar. Yep, similar.
Williamson and Dunlap missed some time during the game. Are they expected to be back? For
Yeah, they're
Saturday?
fine. Yep, they're back. Yep.
Around college football, a lot of teams probably didn't play the way they wanted to in that first week. Your experiences from 1 to 2, games 1 to 2, is that where you see teams kind of look more like themselves or what you think you're going to be?
Well, you want to. I've always believed in it. Doesn't matter if it's 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 5 to 4 to 5, 5 to 6. To me, you got to grow every week, right? You're an ever-evolving team from game 1 all the way through whatever your last game is. And each week you got to get better. And you always got to get better at certain things. You know, I do everything I can to focus down to our players. Not like, hey, you just got to get better. What do you mean get better? So we focus in on 1 to 2 things every week that position group's got to get better at the next week. Then you play the next week, and there's certain things, maybe you fix that, but now this is an issue. Right? We wouldn't have a job if we didn't have anything to coach. Right? There's always something to coach, and there's always something to get better at. And that's where players have to have that open mind of, I'm constantly growing, I'm constantly changing. That's why we say failing is growth. Change is irrelevant, or it's constant. It's going to constantly come up, and you have to be okay with change. So for us, we have to get better at all those things. I'd like to see an improvement from week 1 to week 2 in a lot of different areas. Every coach in America wants to. But to say, like, your best comes between that, I don't know if I necessarily believe that. I've seen some incredible growth from 7 to 8. I've seen it from 11 to 12. And last year would be an example for the second half of the season. So, but we just want to focus on the smaller things we need to get better at, the details, the fundamentals of what we didn't do. Because it wasn't a lot of schematic issues. It was just us trying to do a little too much at times. And we just want us to be our best version of ourselves.
One more for Coach. What are you focusing on the offensive and defensive line to be better at the line of scrimmage against Fresno State?
Yeah, defensively, we've got to be able to get off and separate. And then on the offensive line, we got to be able to finish. It's simple, right? It's one thing about blocking your guy. It's another thing about blocking your guy through the whistle. It's another thing about knowing what gap you're in, another thing to dominate your gap, right? And own your gap on defense. And that's what we have to be able to do better as we go into Fresno State. All right, thank you. I appreciate everybody. Row the boat, Skema. Go Gophers. Thanks.